What's the real difference between a traditional car key and a push-button start? It sounds small, but it turns out this tiny change completely transformed how we interact with our cars. If you've ever stepped out of an older vehicle and into a newer one, you've felt it. One asks you to twist a piece of metal, feeling the resistance, hearing the engine catch. The other just asks for a tap. No turning. No effort. Sometimes you don't even touch the key. But what changed behind the scenes to make that possible, and what did we gain and lose along the way? Let's take a ride through one of the quietest revolutions in automotive history. For most of the 20th century, starting a car was a mechanical ritual. You slid a cut piece of metal into a slot, turned it through a series of clicks, and somewhere deep inside the dashboard, a physical switch moved into place. That switch was directly wired to the car's electrical system. When it reached the start position, it sent power straight from the battery to the starter motor. The starter was a powerful electric motor that spun the engine just fast enough to get fuel and air igniting in the cylinders. Once combustion took over, you released the key and springs inside the ignition cylinder pulled it back to the run position. Everything about this process was physical. Metal tumblers aligned. Contacts touched. Springs compressed and relaxed. You could feel every stage through your fingertips. That key did more than just start the engine. It was also the gatekeeper to the entire car. If the cuts on the key didn't match the tumblers inside the lock cylinder, the switch simply wouldn't turn. That was the original theft prevention system. Simple, but surprisingly effective for decades. As car theft became more sophisticated, manufacturers added another layer in the 1990s, a tiny transponder chip embedded in the plastic head of the key. When you turned the key, the car's computer looked for a specific digital code from that chip. If the code wasn't there, the engine wouldn't run, even if the key physically fit. But at its heart, the system was still built around a mechanical switch and a human hand. Over time, though, that mechanical core became a weak point. The ignition switch was constantly being twisted, and the electrical contacts inside it were arcing thousands of times over the life of the car. Eventually, they wore down. Anyone who's owned an older vehicle knows the feeling of having to jiggle the key just right to get the dashboard lights to come on. Sometimes the car wouldn't crank at all. Other times it would die as soon as you let go. These failures weren't dramatic, but they were annoying, and they pointed to a bigger truth. The car itself was becoming more digital, but the way we told it to wake up was still stuck in the age of levers and springs. That's where push-button start entered the picture. At first it appeared in luxury cars as a futuristic novelty. A glowing button on the dashboard felt like something out of a science fiction movie. But underneath that sleek surface was a major shift in how cars think about starting. Instead of you mechanically closing a switch, you were now just sending a request. The real decision was made by the car's computer. You walk up to the vehicle with a smart key fob in your pocket. The car and the fob exchange encrypted radio signals. When you're close enough, the car recognizes you. When you press the brake and touch the start button, the computer runs through a checklist. Is the right key present? Is the transmission in park? Is the brake pressed? Is the battery voltage stable? Only after all of that does it tell the starter to engage. This might sound like overkill, but it solves a lot of small problems. In older cars, you could easily overcrank the engine by holding the key too long, which stressed the starter and the flywheel. With push-button systems, the computer decides exactly how long to crank. You just give the command and let the system handle the timing. There's also no longer a physical ignition switch wearing out behind the scenes. The button itself is just a low-voltage input device, more like a keyboard key than a heavy-duty electrical switch. Most of the real work happens in electronic modules that are sealed, protected, and designed to last. Security is where the philosophical difference between these systems becomes clear. Traditional keys rely on physical uniqueness. The cuts in the metal and the shape of the lock define who gets access. Add a transponder chip and you get a second layer of digital verification. Push-button systems, by contrast, are built entirely on cryptography. The key fob and the car are constantly talking to each other, exchanging codes that change every time you use them. This rolling code system makes it extremely difficult to copy a key in the traditional sense. There's nothing to cut and no fixed code to steal. But this new approach introduces a new kind of risk. Instead of picking a lock, thieves now try to intercept or extend radio signals. In a relay attack, a device near your house captures the weak signal from your key fob and relays it to another device near your car, tricking the vehicle into thinking the key is present. It's a strange modern form of theft that would have been unimaginable in the days of metal keys. Automakers have responded with fobs that go to sleep when they're not moving, and systems that shut down radio communication after a period of inactivity. The arms race just moved from metal tools to electronics. Then there's the way these systems feel in everyday life. With a traditional key, starting a car is a small ritual. You reach for it, insert it, turn it, and wait for the engine to catch. There's feedback in the resistance of the switch and the sound of the starter. With push-button start, it's almost too easy. You sit down, press the brake, tap a button, and the car is suddenly alive. For some people, that convenience feels magical. For others, it feels oddly detached, like you're no longer directly connected to the machine. This difference shows up in small moments. People with push-button cars sometimes walk away wondering if they really turned the engine off. There's no key to remove, no final click to mark the end of the journey. The car just goes silent. It's a tiny thing, but it changes how we relate to the machine. The old system demanded a deliberate action. The new one fades into the background, letting the technology handle the details. Maintenance tells a similar story. A worn ignition cylinder or a broken key is a straightforward problem. You can see it, touch it, and replace it. Push-button systems depend on networks of sensors, antennas, and control modules. When they work, they feel effortless. When they fail, the problem can be harder to track down. A weak battery and a key fob can prevent the car from starting, even though everything else is fine. Manufacturers usually include backup methods, like holding the fob against a specific spot on the dashboard, but it's still a reminder that convenience comes with complexity. In the end, neither system is strictly better. They represent different eras of design. The traditional key is a product of a mechanical world, where control was literal and visible. The push button is a product of a digital world, where software makes decisions behind the scenes. One feels solid and direct. The other feels smooth and intelligent. What we're really choosing between is not just a way to start a car, but a way to interact with technology. So the next time you press that glowing button or turn that familiar metal key, remember that you're taking part in a quiet story of innovation, one that connects springs and tumblers to radio waves and encryption. If you have an idea for a future episode, drop it in the comments and we might feature you next. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep exploring the hidden stories behind the everyday.